esperanzas de un pueblo que hoy busca la justicia.
Guillermo Anderson here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Sharif Abdul-Quddus. Iran test-fired 2 long-range missiles Monday, just days before Iranian officials are due to meet with the 5 permanent members of the Security Council and Germany to discuss a range of issues, including its nuclear program. Western powers condemned the Iranian test as provocative and deeply destabilizing. Iranian officials said the missiles were tested as part of an annual military drill and bore, quote, no connection whatsoever with the nuclear program. Monday's missile tests follow Iran's disclosure last week of a second uranium enrichment plant. On Friday morning, President Obama, along with British Prime Minister Gordon Brown and French President Nicolas Sarkozy, accused Iran of building a secret nuclear fuel plant.
Good morning. We are here to announce that yesterday in Vienna, the United States, the United Kingdom, and France presented detailed evidence to the IAEA demonstrating that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been building a covert uranium enrichment facility near Qom for several years.
French President Sarkozy warned that Europe and the United States would tighten sanctions against Iran unless it halted its nuclear program.
Les 6 rencontreront les dirigeants iraniens à Genève. Tout, absolument tout, doit être mis.
Everything must be put on the table now. We cannot let the Iranian leaders gain time while the motors are running.
Gagner du temps pendant que les centrifugeuses tournent. Et si d'ici au mois de décembre, il n'y a pas un changement profond de politique.
If by December there is not an in-depth change by the Iranian leaders, sanctions will have to be taken.
Devront être prises. Il en va de la paix et de la stabilité.
Iran, however, refuted Western fears and said its nuclear activities are purely peaceful. This is Iranian delegate Mansour Salsabili addressing the UN General Assembly Saturday.
The delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran would like to put on record that these allegations, fears and concerns are totally untrue and without any foundations. Iran's nuclear activities are and always have been for peaceful purposes and therefore pose no threat whatsoever. The IAEA reports bear witness to the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear activities.
Well, my next guest was a former UN weapons inspector in Iraq in the 1990s. Scott Ritter is the author of Iraq Confidential and Target Iran. His forthcoming book is called Dangerous Ground, America's Failed Arms Control Policy from FDR to Obama. His latest article appears in the Guardian newspaper of London. It's titled Keeping Iran Honest, where he warns against, quote, politically motivated hype. Scott Ritter joins us right now from Albany, New York. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Scott.
Oh, thank you very much.
Begin by explaining, why do you call it politically motivated hype?
Well, I think the answer is quite obvious. Look, on Thursday, this coming Thursday, the United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, Russia, China are going to sit down with Iran, ostensibly to discuss, how to break through this impasse that exists between the Western countries and Iran concerning its nuclear program. But the Obama administration has come to a preordained conclusion that there's nothing that can be done about Iran's nuclear program, that Iran either has to get rid of it all or there's nothing to discuss about. That's not much of a discussion. Iran is a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It has a complete inspection regime conducted by the International Atomic Energy Agency. It's not been found to be in non-compliance, and yet here we are condemning Iran for doing its job, declaring a facility, inviting inspectors in, and the conclusion that's reached from this, that they're producing nuclear weapons. This is politically motivated hype designed to create a situation this coming Thursday that will find the United States unable to reach any sort of agreement with Iran about its nuclear program.
In his comments, President Obama said Iran is breaking the rules that all nations must follow. You write that he's technically and legally wrong. Why?
Well, again, Iran is bound by its agreements with the International Atomic Energy Agency. These agreements are between Iran and the IAEA. You cannot compare Iran's arrangement with the IAEA with any other nation, so it's an absurd argument to begin with. Second of all, Iran's agreements with the IAEA are, the current agreements go back to 2003 period where Iran, in exchange for Europe and the United States recognizing the legitimacy of Iran's nuclear aspirations, that means to enrich uranium for peaceful energy uses, Iran would voluntarily agree to what's called the Additional Protocol of Inspections, as well as what's known as the Subsidiary Agreement. The Subsidiary Agreement requires Iran to declare any facility at the time that it intends to create it, to build it. As opposed to the old agreement, which said Iran must declare this facility 180 days prior to the insertion of nuclear material. Iran said, we will abide by this Additional Protocol of Inspections and the Subsidiary Agreement on a voluntary basis, until which time the Parliament of Iran ratifies these new agreements. These have never been ratified, so this was a voluntary submission on the part of Iran. In 2007, Iran withdrew from this voluntary arrangement, citing the non-compliance of its partners, Europe, the United States, in recognizing the legitimacy of Iran's nuclear program. Iran's not in violation of anything. Iran is in compliance, and the IAEA has stated this. The IAEA has said that the fact that Iran was in compliance with the old Code 3.1 subsidiary agreement, the old safeguards agreements, means that you can't find them to be in non-compliance with this new set of arrangements. The key here isn't the technicality of the legal documents. It's about the diversion of nuclear material. And the IAEA has a 100% accounting for the totality of Iran's nuclear material. So even if Iran produces this new facility, which, by the way, is not in operation and won't be in operation for over a year, no nuclear material has been diverted. There still is a full material balance, and the IAEA is in complete control of the situation. Iran is not in violation. This is not a reason to panic. This is much ado about nothing. But again, we come back to the original premise. This is about political hype. The United States hyping up a capability in Iran which doesn't exist, and that is the capability to produce nuclear weapons.
And the issue of Israel reserving the right to launch a preemptive military strike against nuclear facilities in Iran, how does that play into the upcoming talks and how Iran is reacting right now?
Well, it's not just the issue of Israel reserving the right, the issue of the United States reserving the right. Remember, President Obama said that the military option is not off the table. Now, if you're the Iranians and you make a decision that you strategically require an additional source of energy, such as nuclear energy, to supplement your domestic energy usage so that you free up your oil production and gas production for exportation so you can earn money, this is a big deal. This isn't insignificant. And so you're building this capability. Israel and the United States say they want to bomb it. What do? Well, the first thing you do is you build redundancy, and that's what this Nuke facility represents. It's redundancy. It's a backup to the Natanz primary facility. Again, it's been declared, no nuclear material has been diverted, but it's there as a backup. The second thing you do is you fire off missiles in a warning that you have an inherent right and capability of self-defense. Israel launched a massive air exercise last year in which it demonstrated the ability to fly hundreds of aircraft, the distance necessary to strike targets in Iran. The United States is carrying out exercises with Israel as we speak. The bottom line is it's the United States and Israel which are the more aggressive of the players here. Iran is not an aggressor. Iran has not attacked anybody. Iran is simply trying to do that which it is legally allowed to do: produce enriched uranium for the purposes of nuclear power. It's Israel, which, by the way, is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, claims it will never be a signatory, and has a massive nuclear weapons capability.